All right, so now we want to focus on getting our initial contacts. Now there's two types we're missing from the application, and the reason we don't have them is because we didn't need them before. These have to do with actually fetching them from the back end. So we want get contacts. I'm going to put that at the top here. So let's say export const get contacts. And then we also want clear contacts, which I'm going to put, just put down here. All right, so we have those. Stupid proxy error. Okay, so now in our state, contact state, let's bring in get contacts, and let's bring in clear contacts as well. Okay, and let's see, we're gonna put our get contacts right up at the top. So for get contacts, we're gonna hit the backend API/contacts with a get request. So let's see. Well, should I? Yeah, I guess I could just copy this. We'll copy our add. And we'll change this to get contacts, which isn't going to take anything in. So we just want parentheses here. We don't need a config because we're not sending any data, any body. Oops, get rid of that. So we just want a try catch, and then the endpoint we're going to hit, it's actually going to be a get request to API contacts, and we don't need to pass in this or this. And then we're going to dispatch get contacts. And what we get from that response is all of the user's contacts, which is in res.data, which we're going to send in the payload. Otherwise, we're just going to send the contact error with the message. So we can go ahead and save that. Now let's go to our reducer and let's bring in get contacts. And let's create that. Okay, so what we want to do here is pretty simple. We're just going to fill the contact state with the payload, because that gives us all the contacts for that user. And then we just want to set loading to false. Okay, and another thing that I want to do is I want to set loading to false for all of these. So let's just copy that. So this term, we want to go right here. Not for set current, clear current. That should be good, just for the basic CRUD. Okay, so we have get contacts, we have the action, we have the reducer. Now we have to call that action. So where we want to call that is going to be in our contacts component, right? Because that's where we want to bring it in. So let's go to contacts.js, and let's see, we already have the context, except what we're doing is just bringing in the state, which right now is just an empty array to begin with, right? We need to call that get contacts action. So let's pull that out, get contacts, and let's pull out loading as well. And then we want to call get contacts within use effect when this component loads. So let's say use effect, and we'll put this right here. So let's do get contacts and just pass in, we just want this to run at the beginning, so we'll just pass in an empty set of brackets, and let's add our ESLint disable. All right, so that'll get the contacts and it'll get put in the state. Now, what I want to do is check to see if they're loading. If it's loading, I want to show a spinner. So let's go ahead and create the spinner. I'm going to go to layout and say new file, spinner.js, and this is going to be the same spinner we used in the GitHub project. So I'm just going to paste it in real quick. So we're bringing in spinner GIF and then just a fragment with that image with a little bit of styling. So I'm going to save that, and then I also need to just bring the image over itself. So let's put this right in layout. Okay, and now in order for this to show when it's loading, we're going to add a conditional here. So let's put this, I'm just going to go right above the transition group, and I'm going to say if contacts is not equal to null and not loading, then I'm going to do something else. I'm going to load the spinner. Okay, so if it's not null and it's not loading, that means we want to show them. So we'll just grab the transition group here, or if you didn't use transition group, whatever you have, and then paste that in. Okay, so let's save that. Spinner is not defined. We just need to bring that in. Okay. Now it said get contacts is not a function, and that's because in our contact state we need to add that down here. All right, so let's save that, and then let's go back and log in. All right, so we get our contacts. Oh, you know what? One thing I want to do, see how it says when I reload, it says please add contact? That's because our initial state for contacts is an empty array. And right here in our contacts component, we're seeing if the length is 0. So right at the beginning, it is 0 until we get our response back. So what I want to do is change in the contact state. I want to change the default for contacts from an empty array to null. That's what I meant to do earlier anyways. So we'll go ahead and do that. Now, cannot read property length of null. So what we need to do to change that now, because it's what happens is it's initially null, right? Before it makes the request and it gets the contacts. And this runs before that. So it's checking contacts when it's null, it's checking the length. So we can just change this a little bit and say if contacts is not equal to null and contacts length is 0. Whoops, I put should only be 2 there. And then let's also check to see if it's not loading. So and is not loading. Okay, so let's reload, and there we go. Now we can see the spinner when we reload. And if we deleted these, what would happen is we'd get an empty array, and then it would say, you know, please add a contact. Okay, in fact, I can log out and log in with John Doe, who doesn't have any contacts, shouldn't, and we get please add contact. Now, I don't know if you saw that real quick, but it flashed it flashed Sam Smith's contacts because those were in the state before it got cleared, before it went and fetched the contacts from the back end. And this is something you just have to deal with when you're building full stack with a front end framework and a back end API, because you're going to deal with that split second before it actually gets the data. So what I would like to do is implement now clear contacts on logout. So that way, as soon as we log out, that those contacts in the state are cleared instead of just being held there until we log back in. All right, so let's do that real quick. We're going to call it when we log out. So we want to go to our navbar, which is right here. And let's see. We have auth context. Yeah, so we need to bring in our contact context into our navbar because this is where we do our logout. So let's bring in contact context. And create our variable. Okay, so now let's pull out of that clear contacts. All right, and then where we want to call this is right after logout, right here, clear contacts. So that'll get called. Now we have to go to our contact state because we haven't added that yet, I don't believe. No. Do we bring the type in? Yes, we have clear contacts type. Let's go down. Go down to, let's see, let's go right under delete contact, which we still have to do. And let's say clear contacts. So clear contacts is basically just gonna dispatch. So I'm gonna just copy something simple here like clear current and change that to clear contacts, and we want to emit here clear contacts or dispatch, whatever. And then in our reducer for clear contacts, we're going to set everything back to its default basically. So let's go under delete here too, and we'll say case clear contacts, and we're going to return, and we're going to set, let's say state, and we're going to set contacts to null, which is its default. We're going to set filtered. We're going to just clear out all this stuff. Filtered to null. Let's set error to null, and current to null. And let's make sure in our state we add down at the bottom here clear contacts. Okay, so now as soon as we log out, that should get called. So let's go back to our application and let's log in as Sam. And if we look in our state, our contacts state, in our value here, so contacts has two objects in the array here. Now as soon as I log out, as soon as I hit that, it's going to call clear contacts, and now you can see it's set back to null. So now if I log in with John Doe, it doesn't show those contacts, okay, because the state was empty. It just showed the spinner for a second. So that's, I mean, those are the types of things that you're going to have to kind of think outside the box with when you're dealing with full stack applications like this, where you have a completely separate back end and front end. But yeah, so now at least we can add them. Let's give John Doe a contact. He's lonely. Let's do Kevin Williams. And there we go. And if I reload, he's still there. So we can add, we can see our contacts. In the next video, let's make it so that we can delete them. So we'll have to send a request to the server to do that. And maybe if we have time, we'll do the edit, we'll do the update as well. You'll see set contacts still works. All that stuff, all that UI stuff still works. It's just the actual, adding and editing and stuff like that we need to implement with the back end.